We'll start now. We'll start off as we do always with a capital Tilim. We'll start off with a capital Chaf, and then we'll do the capital Kufnun, and then we'll just some tzedakah. So Torah, Tefillah, we'll do Tefillah, tzedakah, and Torah. Okay. Lam Natziach Mishra David. Yan Chadim V'Yem Torah. Sagev Hashem Elahei Yaakov. Yishlach Ezrecha Mikodesh Mesiyan Yisadeka. Yizker Kol Min Chisecha Ve'Lascha Yidach Shnasela. Yitem L'Chachil V'Alvecha V'Chol Atzoscha Yimale. V'Danana B'Shuasecha V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgel. Yimale Adonai Kol Mishalesecha. Ati Yodati Ki Hoshia Adonai Meshichoi. Yanehu Mishmei Kodshoi B'Gvuras Yesh Yeminoi. Eile V'Rechev V'Beile V'Asusam V'Anachnu Hashem Adonai Eloheinu Nazkir. Hey Makorev V'Nafala V'Anachnu Kamnu V'Anis Oidod. Adonai Yeshia Melech Yaneinu V'Yem Kareinu. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elokotche, hallelujah, B'Chavuze, hallelujah, B'Gvoresav, hallelujah, B'Gudle, hallelujah, B'Sekashrefa, hallelujah, B'Neiruchine, hallelujah, B'Sefamochel, hallelujah, B'Ugab, hallelujah, B'Tzot Neshama, hallelujah, B'Tzot Tzlesrua, Shoma, hallelujah, hallelujah. Okay. Right, so we have a list, quite an interesting list of shilas, but particularly I had a...
Diane, can you move your camera towards you? Like I've got half a...
This way?
Excellent.
Okay. Right, so I've got here a special Gilui Yair, which I'm going to leave to the last. Something which surprised me this morning, which I want to share with you. So let's go Al Seder. So I have here, at the beginning of the week, someone asked me the following question. Her daughter, a 9-year-old girl, was in hospital recently, and she was given one of these identity tags, identity bracelets. Oh, a 9-year-old girl, she's quite happy to continue wearing it. So is there any problem of her wearing that identity bracelet on Shabbos? So I've put here on the screen, you have it in front of you, I hope. Yeah, you can see the screen? The, yeah? Okay, so let's go. I haven't shared the screen. Let's go to share the screen then. Okay. Do you see it now?
Yeah, we have it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Right, so we have here a quote from the Sefer Shmiras Shabbos Gilchasa. I wanted to address this because it's not just about a little girl wearing a bracelet on Shabbos with a name tag, but many of us may have information, health information, which we wear on a tag on us, and some of us need to have it with us the whole time. And therefore, it becomes a much broader question. Are you allowed to wear a name tag or a medical details tag in the street on Shabbos? Of course, we're going to look at things more leniently for someone who has a health problem, and especially if there's an eruv of to whatever level, that would make life much easier. But then now let's take a look at this. This is a quote from Shmiras Shabbos Gilchasa, which is written in Eretz Yisrael, obviously. A person who's unwell, who suffers a particular ailment, which could be dangerous if it's not dealt with properly. So you have someone who's suffering from an illness, and if they don't care of it properly, it could be danger. They want to get, let's say he wants to go to shul. Let's say that's a dvar mitzvah, and he's got this name tag with medical details. So there's no eruv, but there's not a reshus rabim gemura. So he says, if that's the case, you would be allowed to go out. So he's allowed to wear this chain, which has got a pendant, which has got the medical details. We'd be allowed to, if necessary, whoever's going to deal with him would be able to see on this tag the vital details. Then he talks about a person who's got a panic button, which they need to wear with them. So they would be allowed to, if it's not a rishus, even if it's not, there's no eruv, if it's a health issue and they're going out for a mitzvah purpose, so even though, so they would be allowed to wear this on them. So coming back to this girl with this bracelet, I didn't see that was justified for the girl to be wearing the bracelet on Shabbos. All right, she's a little girl, so she's 9 years old, so not such a problem. But because that name tag is not a piece of jewelry. When you're wearing a tag to let's say you've got in a hospital or a staff member has got a tag, that's not a piece of jewelry. That's just a tag to identify. That, in principle, shouldn't be worn on Shabbos. Here, because we're talking about someone who's got an illness and otherwise they can't go out at all. So then there's a leniency that they can go out wearing this pendant with identity details, with the medical details, for there's a special need. So,
Diane, are you talking about a tag that hangs, or this is a bracelet which is just wrapped around the wrist?
No difference. No difference. Whether it's worn as a pendant, whether it's worn on the wrist, it's not a piece of jewelry. It's a piece of information. And yeah.
Plus, lots of teenage girls wear little plastic bracelets with like a slogan on it, and it's like a fashion statement, and this little slogan they have on it they like to have.
But I've often,
this girl, it's a slogan. This thing.
12, it's come up that why are they wearing this bracelet? If they want to say, let's say, you remember a few years ago, everyone's wearing these orange ones that we are all with Ha'am im whatever, it was a Gush Katif or something, whatever it was. Yeah. So that's not a fashion item. That's an identity, identifying. And that's not okay. If it's because they think they look more attractive, then that is okay. So it depends on that.
And looking cool.
So I mean, I've told we discussed this thing. It was once in the Hiskashrus, an article about people wearing flags. So really, seriously speaking, are you wearing the flag because you want to identify? Then you have a problem to wear it on Shabbos. If you think that that's going to make you more attractive, so let's say if a medal, which someone is a veteran from the war, is allowed to wear his medal because that enhances their persona. I'm a war hero. But if they are wearing them just to identify, to be able to get whatever privileges, then that's not so okay. Okay, let's move on. We go on to the next question we have. Is someone asked? We discussed last week. We're talking about opening cans, possibly. I have a can. I've opened it already. So before Shabbos, let's say it's irrelevant. I now got a lump of tuna. I'm allowed to squeeze this lump of tuna to get the oil out. I don't want to have the excess oil. I'm allowed to squeeze it on Shabbos. And so here we have, I'm going to read the piece from Shulchan Aruch, and that says the following. Belimonim chadoshim, talking about fresh lemons, and then he talks about pickled lemons, which have been preserved in melach v'chometz in salt or in vinegar, mei melach, v'chesh o peiros v'yirokas hakvushim, pickled vegetables, pickled fruit, v'chein hashlokas or stewed fruit, also divrei hakoyle sochten l'tzorich memeim. You have prunes. You want to have prune juice. You mustn't squeeze the prunes to get the juice out. If you want to squeeze let's say you got a pickled cucumber, and you want it to have less juice on it. So you want to squeeze it, not because you want the juice is going to go to waste. You just want to have the food to become tastier, then that's allowed to be done on Shabbos. That's not a problem of discharging the juice. You don't need the discharged juice. You want to have the less saturated food. And that's okay. Now, my Shver Alav Shalom was several times, Rabbi Sudak, and we were several times by the Rebbe Seder, and we all have morah, grated morah, for our Seder. And he would always follow what he saw by the Rebbe. He would take a fistful of the grated morah and squeeze it and shake it onto the floor. We won't deal who had to clean up the mess afterwards, but never mind. Actually, morah juice is a bit sticky. But meanwhile, that's when you squeeze that morah. It's not because you want morah juice. It's because you want to have less fluid in the moror, in the grated moror, and that's okay. So that's not a problem of schita, because you don't want the juice. You want to have the food which is going to be less saturated, and that's okay. Let's go on to the next slide, next question. This is from someone from New York. His job is to disinfect the premises. I don't know what the right word for it is. And now with COVID and all that, so this has become a big business. And he was invited, his company was contacted by a church to come and disinfect. Now this is what President Trump had gehabt, that when places of worship are essential, hasn't yet filtered to this part of the world. But there they're having, let's say, a session of worship, and then they have to have someone to come in to disinfect the place before the next session. Okay, that's the shaila. So is he allowed to enter a church in order to disinfect the premises? Not for prayer, for simply just for work purposes. So here we have a quote. You can, if we see on the screen, we have a quote from Shulchan Aruch. It's Yeridea. It's in the dinim of Avodah Zarah. Generally, our view is, the way the Rambam is quite clear, that that Christianity is considered a form of Avodah Zarah. It doesn't mean a goy is not allowed to do it. For a goy, it's okay, because Shituv is allowed for a goy. He's allowed to serve Hashem and something else. So for a goy, it's okay. But from our perspective, it's Avodah Zarah. So let's read over here. This is the Ramah. The block writing is the Mechaber, Rebbe Yosef Karo, and the smaller Rashi writing, that's the Ramah, Rebbe Isilis, the following, how Minhag Ashkenaz. Chotzer shel Avodah Zarah, a premises, the yard of Avodah Zarah. So you've got a building and you've got a yard. Obviously, the yard is not such a worship use as the building. So it's a subsidiary to the building. Yesh oimri, the dino ki'ir shel Avodah Zarah. Now, those who say that the yard is not a place of worship, it's like a city where worship is done, and with the goyim are not gathering for worship, you're allowed to enter there. V'yesh oimri, the bechol inyan osur im ein derech oive boile mokem acher. You're not allowed to go through there unless it's a path to get through to someone else. וכן המנהג פשוט לילך דרך איזה מקום לחוצר, למקום אחר, ומכל מקום מידס חסידס לסרחק מלילך בוי אם יש לו דרך אחרת, etc. Basically, it's saying that the chotzer of Avodah Zarah, you shouldn't be going in there, you shouldn't be entering a chotzer of Avodah Zarah unless it's a path to get someone else. But to just go in there, that would not be okay. Reb Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about a school which is next door a church, and whether the Jewish children are allowed to play. They don't have a playground in the Jewish school. Could they go to the next door premises to play there? And he says they're not allowed to. And then we have a quote here from the Sefer Mishnah Halachos. This is Reb Menashe Klein, who lived it was a postic in Borough Park for over 40 years. And he was asked about entering a church for voting. And again, he says very, very clearly, and he publicized this in Borough Park, that you should not go into a church, even if it's to the ancillary rooms for voting. Of course, it's not for worship, but it's all a chotzer of Avodah Zarah. So generally, the view is that you don't go into a church, even if it's not for, not a time of worship, certainly not for worship. One shouldn't go in there altogether. The fact that, for example, there have been prominent Jewish personalities who had gone into some cathedral or Westminster Abbey, whatever it was, that particular state event. So, all right, they may have had to rely on Misat Shalom Malchus to rely on the more lenient opinions. I remember once hearing Chief Rabbi of Israel, at the time, he had been in Rome, and he he visited what's it called, no? The Vatican, and he says that right after that he ran to the mikveh as to get rid of the tumor. But the Chil Hashem doesn't come away with the mikveh. He himself is purified with the mikveh, and I know that the Rebbe was very. There's a letter of the Rebbe to write the late Rav Medalia, and he's very, very concerned about a rabbinical conference should not be held in Rome. And he tells Rabbi Medalia, this is after my telegram, and he's very emphatic. He says there should not be a rabbinical. It was a combined rabbinical and lay conference to be held in Rome. And the Rebbe says it shouldn't be held in Rome, not even the whole country, because first of all, there'll be those who might want to go to visit the Vatican. And secondly, what will happen? The Vatican will invite. It's going to be very difficult to turn down such an invitation. And therefore, the Rebbe says to Rabbi Medalia, who was the Rov in Shomer Hadass in Antwerp, he says, "L'daiti should not be. You shouldn't go, and there shouldn't be such a meeting not only in Rome, but they got Kol HaMedina." Anyway, so I responded that he should not go into the church, even for just for work reasons. Let's go on to the next question, which I'd like to share. How do you like that for a chuppah? You know, now you've got smaller numbers, so what's missing in numbers you make up with quality, yeah? Ashena chuppah. So this is someone in France. He asks me, is this okay for a chuppah? So what exactly is a chuppah? Are there halachas about a chuppah? His question was, does a chuppah have to be made similar to like a paroiches? Which is not, I told him it's not a problem. A chuppah can be made with a talus also. But let's take a look at that word chuppah. And where does the word chuppah come from? I'm sorry about the poor quality, but that's what I managed to find. There's different, the word chuppah. Now, you know what? Let's go to the next slide, then we'll come back. When it comes to a chasna, we have the chasna is made in two parts. There's what's called erusin and nisuin, or if you see those words, chuppah v'kiddushin. These are two phases. In times bygone, these would be done at separate times. There would be what we call an engagement. So a couple have decided, a man and woman decided to get married, shidduch, whatever. So then there would be what's called kiddushin. He would give her a valuable item, and she is now betrothed to him. She's, so to speak, there's a contract there, but they're not living together. That's called chuppah. That's called kiddushin. Another word for that is erusin. And if you want to remember that, the word erus is a similar letters as the word isur. And it says in the Gemara that it's the osar lo akuli al mekehektish. The erusin means you're not fully married yet, but now she's reserved for you. And she is now sacred to you, consecrate, whatever the word is, and no one else is allowed to live with her. But they're not living together yet. That's called kiddushin. If you call it from the word kedusha, that's called erusin. Then, what there would then be, after a few months, he would put together the wherewithal to set up home, and then there would be a chuppah, and then they start living in the same house, kederach kol haaretz. So these were clearly two phases, and until about 800 years ago, they were done in separate phases. And then because of persecution and instability, so then they stopped doing an earlier kiddushin. They just do a shidduch with tnoim, whatever, and they do the chuppah and the kiddushin in one setting. But clearly under the chuppah, we are doing two sessions, and I want to explain this. There's the first part, which is then you have one of Rovers Masada Kiddushin. What's the qualification to be a Masada Kiddushin? A bit tongue-in-cheek, so long as you know how to do Ivra, know how to read Hebrew. Because the chosen is really, it's the chosen who's doing the mitzvah. It's not my mitzvah, it's the chosen. But sometimes there's a chosen who can't read the word very well. So you get a rabbi who knows how to read Hebrew. Okay. He has other responsibilities also, but that's primarily, he has to know how to read Hebrew. That's the first part. We say the bracha agofen, and then the bracha of the mitzvah, and then at this point the chosen gives the ring to the kala, and he says aret mekudeshes for, or during. That is the kiddushin. We then make a break, not the cup. We take a break in time, and the ksuba is red. And then we start into the next phase. We refill the cup, or take another cup, and then we say Hagafen again, and the next six brachas. And Tosfos in Psachim explains this, that this is, the ksuba kind of creates an interruption, an interval between these two phases, which is called chuppah, between kiddushin and nisuin, alias also known as chuppah. So the chuppah is a procedure to allow and to kind of sanction that this man and woman are now going to live together in one house as Kederech Kol Haaretz. So we've got here, in other words, the chuppah is actually a vehicle, it's an instrument to change the status of this Isha. Until now, she was Mekudeshes, and now she's going to be Nesua. Let's say, until now, she was allowed to wear her own hair uncovered. Once she is Nesua, her hair should be covered. Okay, so now let's come back. We want to now understand this instrument called chuppah, which changes her status from Arusa to Nesua. What exactly is this chuppah? So some say the chuppah is yichud. Some say it's what they put a cloth over the two. Sudor al roishon b'shas habrocha. Some say it's got to do with the fact that she goes out of her house with her hinuma, with her hair uncovered. And Almona it's yichud. Haminag poshut achsho. What is now the contemporary understanding, says the Ramah, 500 years ago, 450 years ago, we call a chuppah mokoim shemachnisim shom yeriya prusa, where they spread a sheet of sorts, a drape, which is prusa al gav kloinsos. It's a sheet draped over columns. It's under this canopy, under the poles where the chosn hakala are brought together in public eye, and in Mekad Shosho, does Kiddushin, and he says the bracha, we say the bracha Ersin and Yisuin, and then they are taken lebais, they're taken indoors, and they eat together in a mokim tsanua, that's the yichud room, and this is the chuppah. Okay, so the chuppah is a serious business, it's a status la halacha, it's going to effect a change of this couple. Till now they were, she was mekudeshes to him, now she's going to be nesua, and there are various consequences halacha. So what is the chuppah? It's this drape over those columns. That's called the chuppah. Some say that the chuppah has to have, it's meant to be like he's bringing her home. It's symbolically bringing her into his home. Of course, there's also the yichud room, which is more like a home. But some say because it's like a home, it should have 4 doorways. And as you know, when it comes to Eruv, the horizontal has to be sitting on top of the verticals. When you do a wire and poles, it's essential that the wire should be on top of the pole, not wrapped around the pole. So some poskim say that the chuppah also has to be that the drape is upon the poles, and therefore, in that way, it's created 4 doorways. Some are not so fussy about it. Some also insist that there should be a bit of a drop. One of the poskim, that there should be a drop on the 4 sides, that the chuppah drops down a bit. But certainly this chuppah, which we see over here, does satisfy both of them. Now, I wanted to also address sorry. There we go. Okay. Right. Sorry. Can you hear me? Good. Now,
yeah, we can hear you.
The next step is the yichud room, and I wanted to address why is it that by a second wedding, in other words, a woman who's married for a second time, we would normally do the chuppah indoors.
One of the reasons for this is that the concept of chuppah being the vehicle to change from a arusa, kedushin, to nesuin, there's a Yerushalmi which says it doesn't work for an almona. For a second marriage, that vehicle of the canopy doesn't change her status. What does change her status? The going into a private room together. And therefore, if you're going to do the chuppah outside, then there will be a hefsek between the brachas which are said under the canopy until you go into the private room. So therefore, by a first marriage, when she's a psula, so you make the chuppah is valid outside. There's a valid chuppah. There's also the yichud, but there's no worry of a hefsek. When it comes to a chuppah salmono, because we don't count the canopy as making that change, we don't go to the holom just now. Instead, we want to we have to rely on the yichud. So by being indoors, so then they can be going from one to the other with minimum interruption, and so that's why that's one of the reasons why chuppah salmon is done indoors. There's also the other well-known reason, and that is the first luchas were given with all lots of fanfare, and they didn't last. The second luchas were given in a more discreet way, and they did last. And because it's a second marriage, so therefore you kind of downplay. You make less of a fuss about it, and in that way, there's the hope that it should last. Yeah. I have a friend of mine who made a chasna about several years ago in Manchester. It was a second chasna. His son was remarrying, and he invited me to come. At first, I said I would come. I'm very good friends. He lives in America. But then I realized it's a second chasna, and perhaps it wasn't so convenient. I said, you know what? By the fact that I don't come to the chasna, it will make the chasna a little bit smaller, and it should have a kiyum. It should be longer lasting. It should last long. Baruch Hashem. Okay, it's important to discuss this because sometimes people make a second chasna and they want to make a whole big fuss, which actually should downplay a second chasna. Yeah, a bit timely. Okay, we go on to the next point on my list. Is a woman, a shlucha. She does Hebrew class, and now because of COVID, she's doing it via Zoom. And she wants to do, especially this week, it's got to do with the hafroshas challah. So she wants to do baking challah with the children. How do you do challah baking over Zoom? So what she wants to do is she'll prepare a big batch of dough, and then put small amounts to eat for each child in a bag. And she'll go around, deliver the bags to each child at home, and then it'll come the cheder time, the Hebrew class time, and she will do she'll display with them, and each child will make their own challah. And then she asks the question, what about a bracha? She'll make hafroshas challah. Can she make hafroshas challah when the dough, most of the dough is not here? A lot of the dough is already by the children in their respective houses. So I answered her that it's for you to make a bracha, it's essential that you have a shiur challah, which is, let's say it's 3 pounds, 4 pounds, whatever it may be. In addition to what you've given out to the children, you should have retained for yourself a shiur challah. In this way, you can take challah for all of the dough. Now, we've gone through this in previous occasions, that there is a Mishnah which talks about if you make a dough with the intention of distributing it to small amounts to several customers. So you started off with 3 pounds, 4 pounds. You intended to divide it to smaller amounts, 1 pound here, 1 pound there. Then we have a problem, because the fact that you intended to divide it into smaller amounts takes away from the fact that you have a shiur challah. So now, if she would give out to each child and not have a shiur challah at home, I would say it's isa asuya l'chalik. It's a dough which was with the intention of distributing to several customers. And once it's in the children's home, it's a separate bailus. Therefore, you wouldn't be able to take a challah with a bracha. By having it a shiur which she'll retain for herself or her household. So then she would be able to say with a bracha. And so that's what I advised her. Do these small amounts of the children in their respective homes, are they chayiv b'challah? The chayiv not. And even if yes, so they're covered by the challah which the shlucha will take in her home when she does the Zoom lesson. Now I got another question, a very interesting question.
Why is it covered by hers?
Okay, I'll explain to you. There's a din of, I didn't want to go into harichas, but you asked, there's a din of ein mafrischen shalom min hamukif. The chatchila, the batch of dough should all be in the same setting, same place. But certainly b'di'evet. And in the circumstances then you can be mafresh even shalom min hamukif. So even if you'd say that those small amounts which the children have are chayiv b'chal, I think they're not. But even if they are, so then she's taking challah and it's covering for them. We've gone through this before. How do the if you go to a Jewish bakery, you go to Grudzinski, are they open at 4 o'clock in the morning? You go at 4 o'clock in the morning, you buy a loaf of a roll, and you go and eat it. Who's mafresh challah from the roll of from the dough at 4 o'clock in the morning in Grudzinski's? They're working. The goyim are working there through the night. How is hafrosh's challah done? So the procedure is that the bakers, the goyish bakers, for every batch of dough, they take a lump and put it on a tray, and they number it. Mashgiach comes 6 o'clock in the morning. Remember, Moshe Abel Shalom. We used to see him every morning. He used to come to the bakeries to take hafrosh's challah, and that was okay, even though it's possible that some customers have already eaten but in chutz la'oretz that would work. So let's not get into that whole discussion because limited on time. Okay, so here the following question. Actually, this question was asked by someone who has a non-Jewish relative. She is a geyores, and so she has non-Jewish relatives, and they are going to come to visit. And she's asking if they cook in her microwave, does that become a problem of bishul akum? And I told her that really, b'derech klal, people use microwaves for warming up food, for defrosting, for reheating, and in that setting, it's not a problem of bishul akum in any case because it's just reheating. But what would happen if you actually would cook from raw a choshev of food? If you'd cook a steak in a microwave oven, is that called bishul akum? A choshev of food, you cooked it in a microwave. If you have a goy who cooked food from raw in a microwave, is that called bishul? And what's the question? The question here is because the microwave doesn't work doesn't use conventional heat. It's using friction. It's going to, don't ask me more details about the molecules getting bregas with one another and then rubbing each the other way, but it's not using conventional form of cooking. So therefore, is that called cooking in respect of the gzeira that you're not allowed to have food cooked by a Yehudi? Is that included? So this question actually was addressed by Rebbe Feinstein, must have been about 30 years ago, perhaps more. Rav Shevet Halevi, Rav Vosner, and Rav Elyashiv, they take a stricter view. They take the view that it's no difference whether it's cooked in a microwave or a regular oven, and it's still called bishul akum. There are those who are more lenient, take a more lenient view because of the reasons which I say. What's interesting is that Moshe Feinstein's his rationale is it's a normal way of cooking. Using a microwave is a normal way of cooking. The reason for bishul akum, the issue of bishul akum, is not to become too friendly with your non-Jewish neighbors, etc. And he says, what's the difference? It's a conventional way of cooking. A little bit. So one of the later poskim says it's actually not entirely the case. Because as I just said, most people don't use microwaves for cooking from scratch. Most ovens don't cook. Most uses of microwaves are not for cooking from scratch. They are mostly used for reheating foods, for defrosting and for reheating. Therefore, to say that it's a roiv people cook in microwaves perhaps was a little bit wishful thinking 30 years ago. I don't think that bears out in today. What does now become interesting, though, induction cooking. The argument to say that a microwave is not a conventional fire, therefore shouldn't be called bishul, now can be applied to the induction, which is using to my understanding, very similar idea to the microwave. It's kind of getting the molecules all excited in the food and without normal heat. But I think induction is becoming a very popular form of cooking, and therefore certainly the Machmirim, Rabbi Yashiv and Shevet Halevi and Reb Moshe, they certainly would say that the fact that it's not using conventional fire doesn't change. It should be Isra Bishul Akum. So all right, so when there is a little bit of room to be makel, but overall the answer is it should be considered Bishul Akum and one should be Machmir. Just since I mentioned about these induction cookers, they are probably beautiful when it comes to practicality, but they are such a problem for halacha if you have a goyish chef, because normally what happens in a kosher kitchen when you have a goyish chef? So you have a fire which he lights the fire with the induction stoves. Every time you take it off, it's off. You open it, you put it on. The fire goes on again. It's every time that you'd have to have a yid there the whole time. You couldn't have a goyish staff member cooking in your house or in your facility with induction oven. It's similar with some of these commercial ovens. A similar thing that whenever you open them, they switch off, and it switches on when you close it. So that's raising a problem with Bishul Akum, which is beyond what I was planning to talk about today. Okay.
Can I ask about the induction, because the way it works actually, it induces it. There is in the plate a method of inducing, and it has to be a very specific type of saucepan or container, and then that heats up. So in other words, the actual surface of the induction, in theory, doesn't get hot. It's the keli that's on top of it becomes the heating element of the food.
I didn't realize. I thought it's similar to the microwave. Okay, no. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Dime Roskin, does that apply to the? Sorry, does that apply to the induction of the chief rabbi as well?
David, wrong form. Okay. Should I say you're warm? Okay. Next, I have here our discussion last week about the Eruv, and I just want to clarify something, and that is the ambivalence which I discussed last week about an Eruv. I think I used the word urban Eruv about 10 times. If you have an Eruv which is clearly just a couple of houses which got an Eruv with one another, there's no problem at all. The question here was about a street Eruv, which is street, which is a whole area, which would mean that people are kind of switching off to the concept of not carrying on Shabbos. But now, here, not dealing with that now, we're dealing with, here you have what you see on the picture, there's a passageway. Let's say Reuben, can you see where that yellow bin is? Well, behind that, somewhere a bit beyond that, there's the door. So this is the passageway out of Reuben's house. Happens to be that upstairs, or somewhere along the passage, there's another user of that passage. So it's outside his property, but there's someone upstairs who uses that passage. That's their access to the street, or even not. So now here's the question. I have a premises, and there's someone else who doesn't use my premises other than to walk through my premises to get out to the street. So is that okay? Because they're not sharing the premises, or the fact that they walk through itself is an issue. Now, I'll give you another example. In some of these fancier blocks of flats, you have every floor is a separate owner. A separate, whatever you call them. They own their own flats, and every floor is there, but they carry in the corridor, because that corridor is their corridor, but the upstairs goes through their corridor if they want to go down. So here you have, it's not a shared use other than rights of way. Does rights of way of someone else invalidate your ability, your rishus to use this premises? So here we have the interesting lashon. Regel hamuteres bimkoimo, eino oiseres sheloi bimkoimo, which means like this. If there's, going back, let's say there's 2 yards. Each one has got 5 houses. There's the inner yard and the outer yard. Now the inner yard they make their Eruv, and they don't share the outer yard. They just have the rights of way to go outside. They go out through the outer yard. So they have an Eruv within their inner yard. That's called a Regel Hamuteres B'Mkoimo. If they have an Eruv, they don't need to make an Eruv with the outer yard. Their traversing the outer yard doesn't invalidate the permission of the outer yard to use their premises. If, however, the inner yard did not have an Eruv, they are called a Regel Asura B'Mkoimo, then their traversing the outer yard to get to the street violates the Eruv, and the outer Eruv is going to be invalid. So this is where you have sometimes the fact that there's going to be someone traversing through your premises may be reason to, if it's two people or more, they're going through your premises would actually violate and invalidate your permission to use that premises. So if it's a goy who's what has the rights of way, there's an eitzah, it's called Schirus Rishus, which means you go over to him before Shabbos, or come once a year or once in 10 years, whatever. You give them a nominal amount. You say, for religious reasons, I want to rent the exclusive use, exclusive rights. And of course, you are welcome to use it, and it doesn't have to be documented. You just give them £1, whatever nominal amount, and that's called Schirus Rishus. It becomes more complicated if the person there is a Jew who does not keep Shabbos. You can't join him in an Eruv. He is not complicit to the concept of Eruv. He doesn't understand, he doesn't identify with Eruv. On the other hand, so the point is you'd have to do Schirus Rishus again with this with this non-Shomer Shabbos neighbor. So there is a solution to this. And I say there's a solution to do Schirus Rishus from the neighbors. But if not, the fact that they walk through your premises with right does invalidate the Eruv. Let's go on to the next thing here. Okay. So now the next thing here I have, someone called me, someone met me yesterday. I don't know what the weather is like in Leeds, but in London 2 nights ago we had very heavy rain, and it was accompanied by thunder and lightning. So the Baruch, it wasn't Baruch, I'm just changed, names have been changed for purposes of privacy. So Baruch woke up in the middle of the night, a clap of thunder, and he sees a flash of lightning and make a bracha, but he hasn't washed Negelwasser. So here's the question: if you wake up in the middle of the night and you want to make a bracha, is it essential that you have washed Negelwasser? Can you make a bracha without having washed Negelwasser? I'm going to move this up a bit. See what I'm doing. Okay, so this is the question. And now with lightning, it becomes a little bit more of an issue, because if you kind of twiddle your thumbs for too long, so then it's too late. You can't make a bracha too much after the lightning. It has to be within a couple of seconds. So by the time
Raskin,
the lightning's gone. You can wait for the next one.
What about Birchas HaShachar, Birchas HaTorah?
Okay, he's not learning now. He just wants to say the bracha and tuck himself under his quilt again.
And you don't need Birchas HaTorah for that?
No.
Obviously not. Otherwise we're saying...
Yeah, and we're going to also deal with the question. People sometimes need to use facilities in the middle of the night, and they wake up, get out of bed, use the facilities, and then they come back. Do they have to do Negelwasser before doing so? So let's take a look. Here's the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur. Misha Yoshin b'malbushav, yeah? That's on the right side of the slide. A person who's sleeping with his clothes. He didn't necessarily touch under his vest or under the covered areas, which are normally a little bit more greasy. According to the din of the Gemara, if you slept wearing clothes, and therefore the likelihood is that you didn't touch the covered parts of your body, so then you're allowed to say brachas, and you can say divrei Torah. Hang on, let me go through. Yeah, Even though the concept of Ruach Ra is mentioned in the Gemara. But it doesn't say in the Gemara that you can't say a bracha with Ruach Ra. It doesn't say in Gemara you mustn't touch clothes with Ruach Ra. Let's read further. Ach bezoyar echmiru me'oid. Sheloi lahazkir Hashem bebrochas lo lilmoid. The Zohar is very emphatic not to say Hashem's name in a bracha and not to learn utter words of Torah. V'chein sheloi liga b'malbushov, nor to touch your clothing. V'chein sheloi lelech dal damas, nor to walk a distance of dal damas. V'oid sheruach hatuma shoyre la yadayim, so long as you have the spirit of tumah, impure spirit, residing on your hands. Kodim tilas yadayim shachris. So here we have that the Zohar is very emphatic that you should not say a bracha and not touch your clothes before washing negelvas. So l'chayre here, you wake up in the middle of the night, you haven't washed negelvas. So according to the Zohar, l'chayre you shouldn't be able to say the bracha. Having said that, just one interesting diuk. Kodim netilas yadayim shachris. Before you wash your hands in the morning. Now, what happens? It's not the morning. It's 2 o'clock. I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, but it's the middle of the night. In the winter, it's pitch black. Do you have a chiyuv netilas yadayim in the middle of the night when you're not planning to stay up now? This is the question. So now, this is discussed in various sources, and the second on the left side of your screen, this is a quote from a sefer called Leket HaKemach HaChodosh. I took it from there, but it's in many different places also. This is written by someone called Rav Katz, who lived in Amsterdam, a very good malakit. He had a son who used to live on Paget Road. Some of you might remember him. Okay. Shomaiti mimoyre v'chom. He's quoting from various forum. This is from the Buchachirov. The Kpeda of the Zohar is only if you get up in the middle of the night, early, Almanas Shiloi Lishon Oid. It's only if you're getting up and you intend to stay awake. Masha'en ken oilich litzrocho. Lachzoir teikif lemitose lishon ein Kpeda bose. So here we have the Buchachirov, who I believe was a Talmud of the Baditsheva. It's in that region. So you're talking about the times of the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe. Very interesting poisik. And he says, he takes a very interesting view. He quotes his father-in-law. I don't remember who his father-in-law is. Who was the B'chochirov's father-in-law? I don't remember. At any rate, he wrote many Sforim, Das Kedoshim, etc. At any rate, so he comes up with this following interesting approach. That the chiyuv to wash negelvasser is only when you wake up to stay up. But if you are getting up and you're going to go straight back to bed, no chiyuv of negelvasser. Or dvor of tmuid. Then he quotes, this next quote is from the sefer called Mishmeres Sholem, the Kodenova. He says, first of all, I'm very surprised. And as we know, there's a well-known shmua that the Rebbe's mother was told to wash negelvasser before breastfeeding the Rebbe as a baby. So she would wake up at night, the baby would wake up at night, she would wash negelvasser before feeding him, but okay. וגם לפי דבורוב, דבר דווקא באמצע הלילה, כשיור היום אין לו הוקל. So Mishmeres Sholem is not so confident about this. Then we have a third quote from the Kaf HaChaim. You get up in the middle of the night, even if you tend to go back, you still have a problem of Ruach Ra. So we have here a whole to and fro of opinions, whether if you get up in the middle of the night and going straight back to bed, do you have to wash negelvasser? My inclination is a little bit, as I said, the Alter Rebbe says, when you have a duty to wash negelvasser now. So then if you haven't washed negelvasser, you have a problem of Ruach Ra. I know it's a little bit tenuous what I'm saying. But if you don't have a chiyuv negelvasser, then you are able to say a bracha. Of course, so that's why my inclination. Especially I have the following problem. If you get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and if you wash negelvasser with your hands, I'll put it with your hands. You wash Negel Wasser in the normal way. When are you going to say the bracha on Netilas Yadayim? 3 hours later? On what are you making the bracha on Netilas Yadayim? For the second time? It becomes quite complicated. And so if you don't do Negel Wasser, you don't do proper Netila, then you've avoided that shaila. You don't have a chiyuv of saying a bracha on Netilas Yadayim because you didn't do Netila with a keli properly. So coming back to that question, it's not so clear from you could take the view that because there's a Ruach HaTumah, you shouldn't be saying any brachas. You could say, since you're not getting up now, so the Ruach HaTumah perhaps is not an impediment, and because you haven't gotten up for the day.
The Be'er Mayim Chaim. The Be'er Mayim Chaim.
The Be'er Mayim Chaim is schwer. Okay, from Chernovitz. Okay, let's move on. Right. Now, here I want to share with you, with this I want to finish off, I want to share with you a fascinating thing. Perhaps it's got to do with the Parshas Shavua, but on Sunday or Monday, I get an email from a young man in Pittsburgh who often sends me questions. And he asks me, where does it come from that we have such long talesim? And I haven't gone on a survey comparing to other Chassidus and other circles how long their talesim are, but certainly in our circles, our talesim tend to come down to the knees. I ask him, are you asking about Talis Cotton or Talis Godel? He says about Talis Godel. So I said, well, first I said, you have to be able to throw it over the sides. A couple of years ago, I bought a new Talis, and I started trying to throw it over my shoulders, and I was like suffocating myself. It was too small. And I had a whole geschäft to replace it with a wider one. When you want to throw over the Talis, you want to be able to throw it over your shoulders, and there should be a bit of weight of the cloth over your left shoulder. And if it doesn't have enough length from side to side, so you can't do an atifa very comfortably. Okay. But he says, no, that's not a problem. The problem is, why do they have to be so long from head to knees? And now, here in front of you, I've got a quote from the Sefer called Nogid HaMetzaveh. The Sefer Nogid HaMetzaveh is written by Rabbi Yankiv Tzemach, who was a Talmud of the Arizal. I remember when I was a bocher, it was in Montreal, and I was going through that piece where the Alter Rebbe mentions the Nogid HaMetzaveh, and I went to Reb Wolf Gringlas and asked him, Reb Wolf, ich suche dem Sefer Negido Mitzvah. The Negido Mitzvah. I didn't know how to pronounce it. So then I showed him, he said, oh, Negido Mitzvah. She told me, so he told me what it was. And so this is a Sefer the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Tzitzis mentions, in relation to Tzitzis, etc. But the size of a talus. So there is a halacha in Siman Zayin and Shulchan Aruch that the talus should be what's the minimum size which is chayv with a talus. A square scarf doesn't need to have tzitzis. So the shear is if a child of 9 years old would be covered rosh v'ruboy, his head and his majority of it would be covered, that size requires tzitzis. And it also says if an adult would be comfortable to go out occasionally, just to go and get something, to go out in the street to wear it. To wear such a thing and just to go out to the street for a minute. Now, I want to explain something. There's no difference la halacha between a talus godel and a talus cotton. It's the same mitzvah. There's no two mitzvahs. So whatever is big enough for a talus cotton is big enough for a talus godel. And if a talus cotton, a square arm in the front, square arm in the back is enough, that's big enough for a talus godel also. And therefore, a talus, if it reaches your waist, you're good. Now let's read the lashon here. The Nogid HaMetzaveh. Talus godel who soid oir bakif by Kabbalah, and he says shu roish tiltif eres shu roishoi al guf ha'odom ad mi bein chadjoi, which means by the bottom of your elbows, and that's what it's got to do with Siyas Hanukva. And then he just summarizes sorich sheyakif haroish v'chol guf ha'odom ponim v'ocher ad he'chozeh. The waist, till the waist, that your chest has to be covered with your talus. So where does it come from that we're wearing such long talesim? If it's meant to be a makif, it's a makif hagodl, so it's makif at the head also. But where does it come from that we have such long talesim? So I actually kind of despaired of finding an answer. And then this morning, I went over to Beis Lubavitch and I picked up the Sikha, which was published for this Shabbos. And I'm going through the Sikha this morning and see what I have over here. The Rebbe asked the following question, talking about a talis. Why does the talis have to cover Rosh Veruboi? Why doesn't the talis have to cover Kuloi? Bob Bashar, if the tachlis of the purpose of a talis is that the whole person should be permeated with elikus, so why does the talis? Of course, it's not only a practical question that you should wear the talis under your toes. He's asking in concept, why is the talis is sufficient to be Rosh Veruboi? Why doesn't it have to be the whole body? Sometimes we say Ruboi Kikuloi. In many halachas we say the majority is like the whole thing. But B'kama in Yonim, we don't suffice with that. And we have the idea of B'chol Drochecha Do'eyu. We don't say B'roiv Drochecha. We don't say Rubei Kekuloi. When it comes to Tevil in a mikveh, it has to be Kol Guf or Yoelo B'hen. And if one hair is out of the water, the Tevil is not valid. So why is it by Tzitzis, is it Rosh Veruboi? So Rebbe asks this question in the Sikha, which was published for this week. Basically what the Rebbe's answer is, that HaTorah al HaRoiv Tedaber, a Beinani, most people can aspire to be a Beinani. It's a bit too much to expect them to be in tune every second of the day. And therefore, there's a motivation. Rosh Veruboi. It should be if the focus is going to be most of the day, is going to be permeated with elikus, so then the little bit will also be schlepped along with it. I'm just going to read one last paragraph. If Rosh Veruboi, if the majority of your head and your body are wrapped around they are permeated with the talis, then we can apply the concept of Rubik Kuloi, and the Torah reassures that the minority will be drawn after the majority, and eventually you'll become totally permeated with the elikus. So the Rebbe doesn't really answer the question, which was asked, why do we wear long talesim? But we have here a very interesting insight that the idea of a talis is kind of to wrap you with a awareness of the Eibishter, and the more it wraps, kind of the better it is, so to speak, and should be wrapping the majority. And just to finish off, I just inspired by this. I said before, the shear of a talis cotton is the size of a cotton bentesha will walk out to the street. Why bentesha? So it says he's old enough that he can walk out on the street without someone accompanying. He's safe to walk out on the street alone. What's deeper to this? A cotton bentesha, as we know, is V'yosebio, is already able to be a mashpia in the world. He's able to go out to the street. He's able to engage in the street. That's where you need to have the protection that you have to have. Rosh Veruboi should be wrapped in with a talus, which is a priest of the mitzvah, which is a mitzvah. And the similar thing, where it says that in a godel, again it says the shear is for a godel that he doesn't mind going out into the street wearing this. Why the emphasis in the street? Because the tzitzis are there to, in a way that we go out into the street, we engage out in the street. That we should be reminded of Yiddishkeit and about the Eibishter, and should protect us. Just perhaps I have now a very short story, and that is with the Baal Shem Tov, that he had a chassid who, unfortunately, his son decided to drop everything, and one day the son comes to his father. He says, "Tati, Mommy, I'm getting married with Ivanka." Perhaps not the right name nowadays, huh? Not PC. Okay, but he wants to get married to Ivanka, a non-Jewish girl, and the father is devastated. He runs to the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov says, "Tell your bocher to come to me. I'd like to speak to him." So the boy accepted the thing, and he came to the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov, he says to the Rebbe, "Don't try to dissuade me from it's nothing to talk about." Baal Shem Tov says, I'm not asking you to cancel anything. If the Baal Shem Tov told the father, "Go ahead with the planning of the wedding, and it's just ask your son to come to me." So the Baal Shem Tov takes out from his drawer a small pair of tzitzis, and he says, "Bocheru, I'm not asking you to cancel anything. I'm asking you one little favor. You should wear this on you the whole time. You should wear tzitzis. So he's getting way easy. He's getting, he thought he was going to get a whole ear bashing about marrying a shiksa. Now he's just to wear tzitzis. So yeah, Rebbe, yeah. Okay. Comes to the wedding. The date comes, and there's a party, and it's all freilach, and they're all drinking. It's in Russia, Ukraine. You know how to drink, and it's all freilach. And the father, the Yiddish, the chassid is standing by the side. He just doesn't know where to put himself. He's going crazy. There's this whole shkotzim party in shiksas. And he's chassid the Baal Shem Tov. And then one of the shkotzim says, I've got an idea. We're celebrating. I've got an idea. They're all well inebriated. So one of them says, I've got an idea. We should strip. Yeah, great idea. And then they say, oh, you're the man of the evening. You're the chassan. Whatever how you say chassan in Russian or Ukrainian. You will be the first one. Sure. Takes off his tuxedo, takes off his shirt, and then all of a sudden they see this Talis Cotton over there. You are shit like all the rest of them. They start throwing bottles and eggs and tomatoes, and he sees the chassan runs up to the side of his father. Tati, let's get out of here. And that was, they all live happily ever after. And I wish you all a good Shabbos and a good Chodesh, and share sympathy with one another in good health.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.
Various links.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.
I'm sure.
Shabbos.
Any thoughts about the parasol on Shabbos? Oh, is muted?
Diane Raskin, is it true that when you see a thunder, can you make a bracha for the thunder without the lighting, or you have to do lighting and then thunder? Or is it not the time or I should call you for questions?
Let's say, Dan Ruskin, unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Say it.
Diane Raskin, can I just ask you about the parasol on Shabbos? Did we sent the email about the parasol, moving the parasol on Shabbos?
I heard. I'm just trying to do something else.
Oh, sorry.
He's trying.
He's trying to.
Here we are. Okay.